Chapter 4. Quietly unlocking the door, she stepped out, gun angled downward. Her breath caught in her throat as she scanned the woods, her pulse thudding in her ears. Then she gasped. The man from the trail was there, leaning against the side of the shelter. Up close, he looked far worse. A cold ripple crawled up her spine. What had happened to him? He had only one shoe on. His other foot was bare, only the top part of his sock remaining. The exposed foot was torn open, flesh visible, as if he'd stepped on something that sliced it clean through. Sky's stomach tightened at the sight, a sick twist of dread curling low in her gut. He moaned, but it wasn't a sound of pain. It was hollow, empty, wrong. His coat hung open, torn, one side slipping off his shoulder. His shirt was streaked with blood. Sky froze, breath shallow, unsure what she was looking at. The man didn't seem to register pain at all. At first, he simply kept bumping into the wall of the shelter. She must have made a noise, because suddenly he turned. That's when she saw his face blood-covered, eyes hazed green, teeth gnashing. A huge chunk was missing from his cheek, as if something had taken a bite out of it. Her vision blurred for a second, her mind rejecting what her eyes were seeing. She stepped back, heart thudding so hard it hurt. He lurched forward, arms raising toward her. She took another step back and lifted the gun, her hands trembling. "Stop or I'll shoot," she warned, voice shaking. He moaned again. Didn't stop. Took another staggering step toward her. She fired into the air, the recoil jolting her arm. The sound cracked through the trees, but he didn't even flinch. She felt her throat tighten. He kept coming. Nothing came from him but that awful moan, louder the closer he got. She stumbled back until her shoulders hit the wall. Panic clawed at her chest. She aimed for his chest, hoping, praying the sight of the gun would make him stop. He didn't. He still stumbled forward. "Don't make me shoot you. I said stop." Her voice cracked. Tears blurred her vision. He was almost close enough to touch her now. The green haze covered his entire eyes, no life, no recognition, nothing human left. She fired. The shot hit his chest. He staggered back a few steps but didn't fall. That shot should have killed him. Point blank, straight to the chest. But he came forward again. Her breath broke. Raising the gun, tears pouring down her cheeks, she fired again, this time into his head. He dropped instantly. The silence afterward was unbearable. Her knees buckled. She vomited, her whole body shaking so violently she almost dropped the gun. What was wrong with this man? Why didn't he stop? What was that green haze in his eyes? Black-green ooze leaked from him. Sky stared in horror. Her stomach lurched again. She bent over and vomited a second time, her body racked with sobs. There was no blood. Just that thick green ooze. The man couldn't be human anymore. If anything human had been left, he would have stopped. Did the green rain cause this? Were there others? Was that what the dreams meant? Was the rain trying to turn her into that? Even with her sharp mind, she had no answers. Fear pressed against her ribs like a vice. She dashed back into the shelter, hands shaking so badly she fumbled the latch. She grabbed more MREs, more water enough to last, and bolted toward town. She stumbled along the trail for another 8 miles. Her body screamed, but she couldn't stop. Every rustle in the woods made her flinch. She had to find someone, anyone alive. She couldn't be the only one who survived the rain. The forest thinned. Sunlight brightened. She never thought she'd be so happy to see the end of the trail. But she slowed before leaving the safety of the woods, forcing her breath to steady. Her hands were still trembling. She didn't want to burst into a mob of whatever that man had become. She needed to calm herself, to avoid running from something bad into something worse. She moved quietly toward the trail's end, careful not to draw attention. She didn't know what the world had turned into, but she wasn't risking her life on the chance that the man in the woods was a fluke. Standing behind the last tree, she peered into town. A slight hill blocked most of her view. Another cluster of trees sat near the beginning of Main Street. Taking a breath, she crept out, walking as quietly as she could. There wasn't much cover until the next stand of trees. She moved toward them, every step measured. As she entered Custer, she slowed. She hoped to find another living person, but somehow she knew she'd likely find more of those things. Skye swapped her gun for the small bow, attaching the steel rods. She notched one. Her fingers trembled, but muscle memory steadied her. She was practiced. 15 feet was her kill zone. She took slow, careful steps. Custer had 1,844 people, according to the map. How many were still alive? How many had been outside during the green rain? She crept deeper into town, eyes scanning. Then she saw her. A woman bent over a body, gnawing at the abdomen. Chewing. Moaning. The wet sound of tearing flesh hit Skye's ears, and her stomach rolled so violently she thought she might collapse. Then a man approached, his movements twisted, slack. He dropped beside her, tore into flesh, and began to eat. Skye's breath caught. Her throat tightened painfully. Her hands trembled around the bow. This wasn't a nightmare anymore. This was real, and it was just the beginning. She swallowed hard, forcing her breath to steady. She couldn't afford to be sick, not now. She blinked rapidly, trying to clear the tears that blurred her vision. She took aim at the man hunched over the body. For a split second, the fever dream images flashed, her own hands covered in blood, lifting flesh toward her mouth. Her stomach lurched. She blinked hard, fighting it back. "Please, just stop," she whispered, voice cracking even though she knew he couldn't hear her. She released the arrow. It struck his head cleanly. He slumped forward. Skye's breath hitched, a sharp, painful sound she barely recognized as her own. Tears stung her eyes, but she forced herself to notch another arrow. The woman beside him lifted her head, green-hazed eyes locking onto Skye. Her chest tightened. Her fingers fumbled. She didn't want to do this. She didn't want to kill anyone. But if she hesitated, if she let fear freeze her, she'd die. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the arrow. She could taste bile rising, her stomach twisting violently. She drew the bowstring back anyway, breath shuddering. "I'm sorry," she whispered. She fired. The woman dropped instantly. Skye's knees nearly buckled. She staggered forward, tears streaming down her cheeks, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. She wasn't sure if she was crying from fear, grief, or the horror of what she'd just done, maybe all of it. She moved in, hoping to retrieve her steel arrows, but nausea surged again. Her throat tightened. She swallowed hard, forcing it down. Then she saw him. The man they'd been eating was still alive. Barely. His eyes fluttered open, breath rattling. Skye froze, heart hammering, unable to breathe. His final words came in a strained whisper. "Don't let me become one of them." Then he was gone. Skye's breath broke. She yanked the arrow from the first creature, then, hands shaking so violently she almost misdrove it through the victim's eye, ensuring he wouldn't return. She choked back a cry, tears falling harder now. What was going on? What had happened? What had the rain done? She wiped both arrows clean on the monster's clothes, clipped one back into the bow, and notched the other. Her head stayed on a swivel, but her heart felt like it was splitting open. She moved cautiously down the street, a nagging feeling creeping over her, like she was being watched. But she saw no movement. Then came the sound of glass shattering. A gunshot. A dog barking, growling in the distance. Skye scanned the shops ahead. 5 men bolted from a store, hauling guns and supplies. A black German shepherd chased after them but didn't stray far from the entrance. Skye backed into a clump of trees. She didn't want to be seen. Her pulse hammered in her throat. She watched until the men disappeared into a group of houses. Only then did she realize the dog had approached her, nosing her left hand. The dog sat calmly, tail wagging. She slid her bow and arrows into her bag. She let him sniff her hand, and he licked it. A quiet, shaky laugh escaped her. She spotted a tag on his collar and read aloud. Shadow. If found, return to Ernie's Army Supplies and Gun Shop. Well, Shadow, that sounds about right, she said. I'm guessing Ernie's is where you came from. When the dog didn't respond, she added softly, lead the way. As if he understood, Shadow trotted toward the store. Sky followed. The sign overhead confirmed it, Ernie's Army Supplies and Gun Shop. Shadow slipped through the broken door. Sky drew her pistol and stepped inside, her nerves stretched thin. The metal security gate over the front window was only partially lowered. The crank rod dangled loosely. Behind the counter, Shadow waited. She spotted a pair of boots jutting out from behind the counter. If the men returned, they could walk straight in. She grabbed the crank, lowering the gate and kicking the locking clips into place. It looked at least 3 inches thick. It should hold. She did the same with the door, slamming down the clips until they locked tight. In the back, she checked the steel security door. Locked. She exhaled shakily. It felt like hours had passed, but it had only been minutes. Returning to the counter, she found Shadow lying beside an older man. Up close, he was even bigger than she'd realized, broad-shouldered, thick-armed, easily 6'1". Ex-military, no doubt. Even unconscious, he looked heavy. Sky knelt beside him, checking his injuries. The shoulder wound was a through-and-through bloody, but survivable. The gash on his forehead bled heavily, but scalp wounds always did. The real danger was the concussion. A hit like that could knock someone out for hours without causing permanent damage. She needed to move him. And that was the problem. Bracing her feet, she hooked her hands under his arms and pulled. He didn't budge. Her muscles trembled. She tried again, gritting her teeth. He shifted an inch, maybe 2. Sweat broke across her forehead. Come on, please, she whispered, breath shaking. She repositioned, using her legs instead of her back, dragging him a few inches at a time. His boots caught on the floor. His weight felt endless. Every pull sent pain through her still weak body, her arms burning, her ribs aching from the fever days before. It took nearly 5 minutes just to get him clear of the counter. Another 5 to reach the doorway. By the time she dragged him into the living quarters, she was shaking so hard she had to sit down before she passed out. Her lungs burned. Her hands throbbed. But he was in. She spread the emergency blanket, then rolled him onto it, another battle of leverage and breathless effort. Once he was settled, she forced herself upright and gathered supplies, gloves, bandages, saline wash, stitching tools, antibiotics, an IV bag. Her hands steadied as she worked. She peeled away the tape towels, cleaned the larger exit wound first, stitched it closed, and covered it with a fresh bandage. Then she repeated the process on the front of his shoulder. After that, she tended the head gash, cleaning it, closing it, securing a bandage over the stitches. Once he was wrapped and stabilized, she inserted the IV and hooked up the antibiotics. Only then did she let herself breathe. Spotting a wheeled cart, she began collecting rifles, pistols, ammo, silencers, Kevlar vests, stacking everything she could. Once full, she rolled it into the back, unloaded, and returned for more. Next came food, dried fruits, vegetables, meats. She boxed them and stacked the cart again. Then noise. Vehicles. Her heart lurched. She grabbed the cart and rolled it into the living quarters. She shut and locked the heavy steel door, then cranked the interior security gate closed. She wasn't able to get all the supplies out of the store. A loud bang shook the wall. Something or someone was destroying the outer gate. She checked the man, still breathing steadily. She examined the bandages. She'd have to change them later. She needed to be ready to move him if the group broke through. She noticed a second door in the living quarters. Maybe it led out. She made no noise, not wanting to draw attention. If they broke through, she'd have to move him. It was dangerous with head trauma and fresh stitches, but she had no choice. Muffled voices echoed through the shop. Boxes being moved. Glass shattering. They spent 30 minutes clearing out the store. Then the voices got closer right outside the door. Shadow's ears perked. He sat up. She whispered, "Silent, boy." He stayed alert but didn't bark or growl. Someone tried the door. "It's locked," a muffled voice said. "Well, open it. It's getting crowded out here." "Too many of those things coming, like they're attracted by sound," another replied. A gunshot hit the metal door. She flinched hard. But it held. It didn't work. "We're gonna have to come back. We're out of time," the first voice said. "Load it up, boys." "Time to go," the second answered. Engines roared. They were gone. The man rested peacefully on the floor. Shadow lay at his side. It had been a long, brutal day. Sky was exhausted. She dug through her bag, pulled out a protein bar, and took a bite, her jaw trembling from the adrenaline crash. Shadow lay silently beside his master. Sky kept her eyes on the man, watching his breathing. His wounds weren't immediately fatal, but the blood loss could be. The head trauma was concerning, no way to know how much damage had been done. She'd checked his pupils with her flashlight, they dilated properly. A good sign. But he'd have a massive headache when he woke. She watched him silently, hoping locking herself in with a stranger had been the right decision. But someone had to help him. If she hadn't intervened, he would have bled out. She just didn't know how long he'd remain unconscious. She slowly finished the protein bar, knowing her body would need real food soon. Then she waited. And watched.